San Diego Global Knowledge University.
So, today our distinguished speaker is Mr. Julian Luna or Julian Lopez Luna.
Lopez Luna.
Yep, Julian Lopez Luna. So, thank you very much for taking the time. Thank you for being here. It's really nice to see you again. It's a pleasure to have you here now as a spotlight speaker. Uh, do you remember which cohort were you on?
Uh, Not exactly, but I think it was like 31 or 32.
Oh man, I thought it was much recent than that. So nice, nice. Um, okay, so let's start. For everyone that doesn't know me, my name is Sergio Insunza. I will be your teacher along the course. I usually teach from 108 to 110 and then from 118 to 120. Yeah, I see a lot of new faces that I haven't had yet, so I'm looking forward to meet you all guys. Uh, so the dynamic here is we usually start a friendly conversation with Julian, trying to get as much information as you can. At any point, if you have questions, and I hope you do have questions, that's why you are here, to ask questions and know what's going on in the industry. So when you have a question, please raise your hand and we'll give you the word. You can open your mic and ask your question. If you have an issue with the audio, you can also type the question, but usually using the mic is better. So, Julian, tell us about your current role, what you work on.
I am currently an intern at Trimble. I am a DevOps SRE intern. So I work on the site reliability engineering area. So I mostly monitor the infrastructure that is deployed on the cloud.
Okay, so you are a DevOps SRE. So SRE stands for Site Reliability Engineering.
Yes,
So your work is making sure that everything is up and running.
yes.
Okay. How long have you been on that position?
For around 2 months now.
Oh, that's nice. New intern. And uh, so that's kind of the role, that's kind of the role description and your job title. What you do, what you actually do on the day-to-day operations.
Well, most of my tasks rely on tickets about sometimes other teams make new updates to some of their clusters or the images they use on servers, and we have to make sure they pass through all of the environments, which are dev, stage, and prod, and we make release tickets, and then we make like a little test or something to move that release onto the other environments. Sometimes I'm tasked with doing scripts to automate some job, like muting alerts on or checking for the deployments. So mostly my job revolves around automation and monitoring.
Awesome. You mentioned a ton of keywords I'm trying to keep up here. Monitoring. So let's start with the first part. You said that uh, Fernanda.
Yes. Hi, Julian. This is that you mentioned something that I sometimes I talk in a class. I'm Professor Fernanda. Nice to meet you. I didn't have the opportunity to teach you, but you mentioned that you work on tickets, and that's something that I would like to see if you can share. Like, how's the process? To get your task, because the ticket is actually your task, the activity that you have to do, like in the day, or I don't know, the time it's gonna take. So how is the process for you to get your ticket or your task? If you please can describe that.
Oh, well, we usually have a weekly meeting with all the team, and our team manager gives us the tickets. He tells us like he gives us a little introduction of the task, and then the ticket, which is given to us at Jira, which is the platform the team uses. And the ticket describes a lot about the task itself, what they want. Sometimes if it's like a script, usually give you what the inputs are, the outputs, the description of what it does. And sometimes they even include like subtasks so that you know how you should progress on your work.
Thank you,
Awesome.
Julian.
Thank you. So, let's step back a little. You work with developers, right? Or along developers, you kind of help developers doing their work and having their sites running. And most of us, or most of the students here, are training to be developers or related jobs as you did at some point. So, you developers, you students, you work on creating something. You are improving a platform, improving an API, creating a new website, improving some designs and functionality like that, right? So at some point you need to deploy that. You need to put that into production. That involves servers, and Julian mentioned clusters. Clusters can be a group of servers, a bunch of servers, because as you imagine, a computer has a performance limit. So one single server cannot handle the entire Facebook operations, the entire Amazon's operation. So you tend to have a ton of servers that working as a single computer, working in conjunction to serve a ton of users. So you work on having these servers, these clusters up and running, and applying changes as the developers need, right? That's what you mentioned.
Yes.
Okay, so that means that developers create the tickets for DevOps?
No, the developers, they finish their task, so maybe their manager tells them like, okay, there has been some time, there has been some updates to maybe some software. Okay, now it has passed some months, maybe we should make another release.
Mhm.
So the manager tells their developers to make the new image or
Mhm.
update some things. They update their branch or the image, then they tell their managers, and their managers are the ones who create the ticket for our team.
Of course they do, because a developer cannot and should not decide when a new release should happen. If you are working on a team, or if you're working on a big company, you as a developer, your work is contributing to the code base, adding and adding and adding and fixing issues. But then it's your team as a whole or your manager, the one that decides, okay, let's cut at this point and let's release version whatever. And you developers, you keep working on the next version, and I will deal with this release. Or you and me and another developer will help me release this new version. So they get in touch with DevOps, and DevOps helps or handles the process of getting that code base, the new version, and putting it into production. And as Julian mentioned, it's not just getting the code and putting it into prod. It passes through a different set of environments. And for this, Julian mentioned dev environment, stage, right?
Yes,
And production.
yes,
And
that is
that's
correct.
kind of, yeah, that's kind of the golden standard for every company, to have at least 3 different environments. Test environment, where you, the developer, you are coding and testing and running against test environment, meaning working with test data, the test databases. So if your code gets haywire, if your application gets crazy and you start deleting everything, you will just delete everything from the test database. That it's a burnout database. It doesn't affect anything. So now, you have everything ready. You said, I'm done with this. This task is ready. The new page is ready. You tested against a test environment, but test environment tends to be finicky because every developer is touching test environment. The data is not reliable, but you cannot jump and test into production. You have a step in the middle. So you test into a middle ground. That's kind of a stage or QA or release candidate, different names for the same step in the middle. So either you or QA test your code against the middle level environment. The middle level should be as close as possible to production. It usually has data copied from production, But again, if something happens to the stage, production is not affected. Your ticket, everyone is happy, QA is happy, everything passes. Now you are ready to go to production, but we don't, as developers, we should not have access to touch production. So we need to pass through DevOps. Your code needs to go through DevOps to be deployed to production environment. So anyone has any questions with these steps? Okay, so you mentioned scripts. What languages do you use for scripts? Python?
Yeah, mostly Python.
Okay, Python it's one of the most popular language for scripts and automation, right?
Yes.
And for those that are new on that are on the initial phases of the course, you will have a ton of Python during this course. We'll start with Python 107, 110, and then 11 through the end of the course. Most likely you will use Python. So how you got interested in DevOps, Julian? Because you were here, you went through the course, you created a great project. So what happened that you said, you know what, devs, or I prefer DevOps, or what happened there?
Well, I really like front-end development,
Mhm.
but at the time that I was looking at the job offers, the DevOps was the only one.
Oh,
So I knew from some people that you could, once you were in the company, you could to other positions or other teams. So I
uh-huh.
thought maybe it was the time to enter the company. So I
It was,
applied.
it is a great decision. The thing that is interesting to me is that you started on one of the hardest positions to get,
Mhm.
and then you plan to move to front end. So that's nice. I mean, it worked for you. So why is it DevOps hard to get? Because if you think about it, a couple of DevOps developers, how big is your team on DevOps?
Uh, I think it's like 6 people.
Oh, it's a big company then, right?
Well, there are like many small teams,
Uh-huh.
but I think the whole like DevOps team, it's around like 50 people.
Oh, and do you know how many developers there are for such a big group?
Uh, I don't know how many developers are,
Oh,
but most
yeah.
but most ones on the company,
Uh-huh.
like on the here at physical at Mexicali,
Uh-huh.
there are like 80 people and most of them are developers.
Yeah, but I'm pretty sure it's like 10 times that.
Yeah.
Usually, companies hire like one DevOps for every 10 to 15 developers. That's why it's harder to get into DevOps, because there are a small number of positions open. And that makes sense, right? For the company perspective, you can build a team with 3, 5 DevOps that can support your operations, enough for 200 developers, 100 developers to work on. So that's why the opening ratio between DevOps and devs, it's huge. As I mentioned, I think it's one DevOps per every 8 to 10 developers. So that's why it's really interesting that you found that opening on DevOps, but it's great. It's great. And how do you feel there? Do you plan to stay on DevOps, switch back to front end?
Um, I'm really liking DevOps. You can meet a lot of technologies, so
Yes.
it's pretty exciting.
It is pretty exciting, as you mentioned, because I mean, I love coding. I really like coding, and I like just heads down for 4 or 5 hours trying to solve an issue that turns out it was a missing semicolon. But it's part of the process, right? But on coding, especially when you are on a company, you get a set of tools, you get a set of technologies, and you just need to use that to build and increase projects. On DevOps, you have the opportunity to test a little bit more technologies, to see platforms, to handle uh, servers and things like that. So if that's what you like, DevOps, it's amazing. It tends to be really funny. As for me, coding, it's fun too, but I can admit that we tend to try less things. We kind of we have a set of tools and we work with that set of tools most of the time. So um how was the process to get into that role? Did you get through a lot of interviews, coding, practice? What was the process?
Well, it was like a 1 month process. First, you apply through their page,
Mm-hmm.
and then you get contacted by one of the HR managers, and you have like a little interview, which is more casual. They just ask you, well, as it was for an intern, they mostly ask for people who are studying. So they ask you about what are your classes, what semester are you on, what is your schedule on school, what do you like, and some of the things you have done in the past.
Uh-huh.
And then you wait like for a week or two, and then you are then invited to a meeting, to an interview. Well, here it was in at the office,
Uh-huh.
which
Oh,
is a technical interview, and which is like 20 to 25 questions about many different topics, from data structures, databases, um, object-oriented programming, data types, and a simple um, code challenge. And that was that was the second part of the process. Then I
uh-huh.
had, as it was for a DevOps a role, then I had another interview with one of my teammates, and it was more oriented to the cloud and Dockers.
Okay. So a code challenge, that sounds interesting because you are not applying to be a developer, but you are required to know to code.
Uh, yes, at least the challenge was something very basic, but as I was talking to other interns who were more on testing environments and more software engineering roles, they said their code challenges were more difficult than mine.
Okay. And it kind of makes sense, right? Even though you are not applying or you are not a software developer, you still required to know to code because automation scripts, you said that you code, that you guys work with automation scripts. So that's code. I don't know if you guys use Terraform
Yes.
or that's code. So that's Terraform, it's just code that it's for configuration. Instead of going into the cloud platform and clicking here and clicking there and adding roles and permissions, you write that into code and then that code is applied to the cloud. So that's actually coding too. Uh, so do you think that the course here, the full stack developer program, help you preparing in some ways to that position that you have right now?
Yes, I think the course really helped me, and it gave me confidence about my skills. And even though this here at Trimble, it wasn't my first internship, I had another one before,
Oh,
which I used the projects I made here at the course to enter
uh-huh.
that intern to get that to that internship. And from
Nice.
that I got to Trimble. And
Okay.
I think many of you will think like, when as you mentioned like Terraform and I mentioned Docker, and we also use Kubernetes, Jenkins, and a lot of technologies.
Mhm.
Maybe most people, including myself, always think like, oh, but maybe I don't know all of those things. They won't choose me. Um, my first month completely was just um onboarding. It was
Mhm.
just taking courses and lectures, videos. They was just teaching me everything I needed to know. So just by knowing sometimes the fundamentals and, well, being eager to learn more, they can choose you.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting, and it's great that you mentioned that because I always mention to or you during my courses, during my classes that one of the main goals here is so you learn how to code and how to solve problems with code. Learning Python and learning JavaScript and React, Django, Flask, it's a secondary goal because it's um, what companies look for. It's people that know how to code. If you learn here Python, you can learn a job on C# because you know how to code. You just need to switch to a different language. You need to switch to a different syntax. And especially with AI tools, the syntax is not, it's less important every single day. because you can just ask, hey, whatever GPT thing, create a for loop on C#, and that will tell you the syntax. The reason why you need a for loop is what you need to think. That's what you should train and develop here. Fernanda?
Yes. So Julian, for example, the Jenkins, Kubernetes, and all of these technologies is something that we don't learn in a bachelor, you know, in the school at the university. It's something that we start learning once we are in the industry. So how is that you found that you need to know about this? How do you realize that you need this knowledge?
Because when I applied to the job, I started looking about what was DevOps, and then
Mm,
I learned that all of those
yeah.
technologies were involved.
And you start learning about researching,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah,
exactly. I like that because I think we all sometimes think that we are gonna learn everything in school and maybe we feel like, oh, I'm not ready. But actually we have to go and start looking for the jobs and see, okay, what I should start reading. And not being maybe a master, but at least knowing about the topic and to have something, you know, like the basics about that. So I think it's a very good example of what you did. So it's very nice. Congrats. Thank you.
thank you.
And yeah, that comes together with learning how to solve problems is one of the main goals here, and also self-learning, your ability to research and go deeper, because the classes we don't have eh, enough time to cover everything, and no course, not the university will cover everything that there is to know about technology. So you need to choose your path, and we will show you the different technologies. We will show you here the most in-demand technologies. We will cover JavaScript, React, Python, Django, as I mentioned before, and we will show them, look, this is front and back, this is front end work, this is back end work, this is database, this is connection, maybe a little bit of security, maybe a little bit of AI, about managing teams, about managing works. Choose what you like the most and get better at it. And for that, you need self-learning, as Julian was mentioning and exampling that. So with this, I'm just trying to say, guys, you need to practice and you need to keep learning. The 3 hours of the class are crucial, be in class, but that's not enough. You need to learn. You need to learn on your own. And that's something that every single spotlight speaker has told the attendees all the time. After the class, I did this, or I started learning that, or I joined the class and I was creating my own project. So keep practicing. That will be the key. So a few coding challenges, Julian. Were you stressed about it?
A little bit.
Of course we are. We always are. It doesn't matter how many years of experience you have, every single interview, every single exam, every single process. It's a little bit challenging and uh, stressing. Every time or every time you do it, it's less and less and less, but it's part of the process. And also has to do, Doctora Rico, please go ahead.
So, hi, Julian. It's a pleasure to have you here. And before asking my question, a while ago, I saw that Leo had raised his hand. I don't know if you still want to ask the question. Leo Miranda? No?
No, everything is okay. Thank you.
Okay. Well, then I want to ask, what were the most valuable skills that you learned in the full stack program, and how you have been applying them in your professional career?
Well, maybe I could say like web development basics,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe how can I say it? Meeting people from different parts of the world helps a lot, because most of my team, it's not here at Mexico, it's in the US.
Uh-huh.
So you usually have to talk to people who don't know your region.
Uh-huh.
and I think that's some of the valuable things I got from the course, meeting people from other parts of the world, especially the US, and maybe Git and GitHub were some valuable things.
Oh, okay. So the global, gaining this global knowledge was very important for you.
Yes.
Oh, I see. And then just, you know, like thinking if there are some like essential soft skills that have been crucial for your success at work, what would you like say about that? What are those or have been those essential soft skills that you would need to have to do well or more or better than well in a job position like the ones you have?
Something, maybe something like patience. Sometimes you have to be really patient with some things, especially with DevOps, when you just have to wait.
Especially with developers, right?
Sometimes you have to wait for developers or for some things, infrastructure to deploy. It can take a lot of time.
I'm pretty sure communication, being
Yes,
on a
communication.
remote.
You have to communicate a lot, especially written communication. Most of the time you have to communicate through emails or messages.
Oh,
That's interesting.
And even your commits have to keep a lot of information, but also be concise.
Okay.
And maybe, well, being respectful, I think, because sometimes we have meetings with people at India and their schedule, it's like 12 hours ahead of ours. So you have to be respectful because maybe you're just starting your day and they're just ending their day.
Middle of the night.
For sure,
Yeah.
having that cultural awareness is crucial here.
That's great. That's amazing.
Thank you, Julian.
So I would love to get some questions from the students. Guys, anyone? This is your opportunity. We don't usually get DevOps because, as I mentioned, it's hard to get DevOps roles. So I don't expect to get many other DevOps back here. So Brett?
Hi, Julian. So basically, I have two questions. One, from completion of this course to when you got that first internship, how long was that gap?
From the first internship, it was like, I think like 3 months.
Okay, and you were actively looking for jobs that entire 3 months?
Maybe like from the month after I graduated from the course.
Okay, so you took a little break.
Yeah.
All right, my second question would be, what did you, I don't think you actually mentioned what you did in your first internship. We don't need to know the company name if it's not important, but I'm just curious if you were in DevOps there as well.
No, the first internship was a small company called Mexicali Systems, which is a completely remote company, and I worked there as a front-end developer. And because it was a very small company, we were just like 5 to 6 people. So as we can call it, the CEO, he usually helped me a lot. He lent me his Udemy account to just browse courses and take them. And he taught me a lot about Jira and Bitbucket, which are tools I use all the time here at my job.
Awesome. Fantastic. And I appreciate your time. Thanks for being here.
Thanks to you too.
So before we go with Fernanda, do you think that it was worth it to join a smaller company at the beginning?
Yes, because as my previous boss said, there's like 2 types of jobs, which are like startups or small companies. And big tech companies, and at small companies you learn a lot of things, but sometimes you have to create all these standards for the work. And at big companies you just follow the standards, and that was something that I noticed, because when we were first developing the project at my first internship, I saw my boss creating all the pipeline and everything from scratch. And and here at Trimble, there's already all the pipelines are already created, and if you have to create a new one, they just tell you like, look at that repository and make a copy of that, and just change it to the values you need.
Of course, that's amazing. I really love how you put it. It makes sense, right? On the smaller companies, you are the do it all. You need to do it all. You need to be the front end, the back end, the full stack. You need to be the security engineer, a little bit of DevOps and whatever, right? And that's a great opportunity because you experience a lot of technologies and you learn a lot. And also you kind of inflate your resume, you increase your resume, your experience that will allow you to jump into a bigger company, because sometimes it's hard to jump a big jump into a bigger company without previous experience. So going for a smaller companies, smaller, simpler positions, it's just one of the step ladders that we all go through, or most of us will go through. So that's great. Yep.
Actually, I didn't tell this, but before going into my first internship at Mexicali Systems, I applied to Trimble to a software engineer intern, and I didn't even pass from the first interview.
Okay, yeah, it makes sense. It's relatable. We all go through that. I've been there, and I'm pretty sure every developer been through that. So that's great. Thank you. Fernanda, you had a question.
Yes, it was related when Brett mentioned the first internship. You mentioned that you use your capstone project for that.
Could you repeat the question?
Yeah, if you use the capstone project for the previous internship or for the first job.
As for my resume, as to apply for the internship. Is that the
Okay.
question? Yes, I told them about the capstone project and also about a project I made at school, which was related to web development.
And what was your project about? The capstone?
The capstone, it was like an Uber Eats mockup, which was called like Fast Foodie or something.
Yeah, I knew it was you. I was not 100% sure, but I was willing to bet that Uber Eats clone, it was you. I remember that, and it was fully front end heavy, right? You work a ton on the front end. It was really good. So you kind of sold that project as your experience.
Well, mostly.
That's good. That's valid, because think about it. Think everyone. You are just fresh out of school, out of the university, out of the course, whatever. You don't have experience, but yet during the interview, you need to demonstrate that. So what do? You talk about the projects that you coded on your own or on an academic environment, and are valid, are almost as valid as projects that you coded on a company. Because when you are on a company, you didn't code that on your own. You were part of the team that coded the project. But when you are on your own, when you are on the academic environment, chances are you did everything. So that's quite where the validity of the capstone project comes in. And the interview process, I'm pretty sure they ask you about the technologies that you used, and what was the technology that you used?
On the capstone project, I used Flask as the backend and React as the front end. And on the interview, they even asked me to show them the code, as to explain some parts of the code, and why did I do it the way I did.
Pretty standard stuff. Show me some code. Show me some projects. And that's why along the course, and every teacher will tell you the same, keep your GitHub clean. Good names on your GitHub repositories, push everything in there, because you don't know if you will have the same computers that you have now in 2 or 3 months. So you need to have those code bases accessible in GitHub. Is just perfect. It's free. If you switch computers, the code is there. Just pull it down to your computer. But in a lot of interviews, they will, especially on if you mention your academic experience or the project that you create on your own, they will say, show me the code. Show me the code. So you will show the project, and that's where also having a good organization on the project, good naming files, it's crucial. So you start going through the files. As an interviewer, we see a project and we definitely know where the meat should be. So we'll say, okay, show me views.py or show me app and routing config. Let's see that. And let's talk about that. And why you do this here? Why do you have the routing? Why do you have the configuration on a separated file? And all are things that we will talk about during classes. And I encourage you to always ask questions. Don't just copy the code. Don't just create the file and put the code without understanding it why. Because the why is more important than everything else. Why are we putting that there? Why are we creating a separate file? Why are we moving that there? Because those are the questions that you will get in the industry. That's how you show your understanding. Thank you, Brett and Fernando, for your questions. Anyone else have questions? Jay?
Hello. My question is, what was your experience level prior to the full stack course at SDGKU?
My experience was making plain HTML pages without CSS. That was my level.
Okay.
So basically HTML.
Yes.
Or not. That's
you.
great. That's great. I remember that project and it was really good. I use it as an example, by the way, on a lot of my capstone talks. Questions. Okay. Dr. Ana Rico.
So what would be an advice that you would give those students who are just starting the program, Julian?
Well, try to learn everything they teach you and try to make the most out of the course, because sometimes on school you don't see these things so deep. On school you just have like a semester to view like all of the things you need in just a little bit. So I think you should really I don't know how to say it in English.
Give extra time.
Well, just take everything they give you, just make the most out of it and practice a lot. Logical problems, try to do mock projects every time you can, because keeping maybe you can learn a lot in the course, but if you don't put it in practice after it, you will forget everything.
To celebrate that.
And just as an estimate, how many additional hours would you invest doing these other projects?
Maybe it was like 5 hours a week sometimes.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So the students think of questions, and please yeah, Leo.
Hey, hello, Julian. Thank you. I don't have a question, but I want to congratulate you, because on your position as a DevOps, as Professor Sergio, he told us, it's really awesome be a DevOps. It's not an easy task, you know. You need to know about front and back and many technologies like Jira, GitHub, Gitbucket, and many others. But congratulations, and that's really awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
And yeah, and speaking of a lot of technologies, let's get into the hairy part of looking for a job. I'm pretty sure the student doesn't dare to ask, but we said that you were a little bit nervous or stressed about the interviews, right? And your mechanism was reading about the role DevOps, finding the technologies, and try to prepare for that. We know that there is not enough time to learn Docker just before the interview, right? But just having an understanding of what the technology is, what the technology does, and what it's used for, it's useful, right? You don't need to be an expert, especially before the interview. Do you remember any part like that on the interview where you said, you know what, yeah, I know what it is, but I never use it?
Well, most of the cloud part, because using the cloud sometimes can be too expensive for just testing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so most of the thing was like, oh yeah, I saw it in the course, on a certificate course or something. Or I just know how does it work, but I have never used it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think most of the things that helped me was that on DevOps, where there are some like key concepts like CI/CD, continuous integration, continuous deployment, or continuous development. Knowing how those things apply to in the software development lifecycle, and knowing how you can apply it to maybe your own development on projects, I think that helps a lot, because they asked me like, on what things could you think DevOps be implemented on small projects or projects that you make for yourself. And I used school projects as an example because, for example, Docker, well, in which you can containerize an app. I was talking about how working on my desktop computer and then passing the project onto my laptop sometimes could cause problems. So we started using Docker to solve that problem, because we just ran the Docker file and everything was the same. The environment was the same.
Exactly. Awesome. That's great. And um, so hopefully, students, you are getting that it's okay to say, I never use it during the interview. It's okay to say, I know what it is. I know it is about this and that, but I haven't had the opportunity to try it yet. Or I have it on my plan to learn, and it's in the next 2 or 3 weeks. It's also okay to say, I don't know what you are talking about. Just don't do it too much. It's okay to say it once. You don't know, I never knew about that, or I don't know what that terms mean. But if you keep saying, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know, then it's not that good. It's okay to say, I don't know, or I know this about it, but I don't know much deeper than that. So you know that at least you have a brief understanding what we are talking about here, and with experience, or the team will give you the opportunity. Just the cloud. It's hard to know everything about the cloud, because there are at least 3 major cloud providers, being AWS from Amazon, followed by Azure from Microsoft, and Google Cloud from Google. Those are the 3 biggest, but those are not the only one. We can list another 5 or 6. So there is no way that a single person will know everything about 6 different cloud providers, different names, different processes, different formats. But you know about the cloud, and you will know about servers or APIs and front end. How to do a front end, or how to create an API on AWS, you will learn it there on the company. So how was your first day, Julian, as in that company, in the current role?
My first day was they reunited all the interns,
Uh-huh.
and they gave us like, they showed us some videos about the company, showing their company values, the company history, and then they gave us our equipment, which was a laptop. They then they moved us to our desks,
Mhm.
and there they gave us mouse, keyboards, and everything. And the first day was just setting up all the tools we needed, installing Python, the IDEs, downloading the AWS CLI, the Azure CLI, getting our accounts up and running.
Mhm.
It was just like a setup day. And then by the end of the day, they gave me my onboarding like plan, which was
Uh-huh.
like an Excel that has that had different tabs for different themes, which was like a general onboarding, which included Git and GitHub, best practices for coding, SQL, and I think that was all. And then the other ones were about advanced SQL queries, Python, Terraform, Jenkins, Kubernetes, Docker, and Datadog, which is a monitoring tool.
So a lot of technologies that you need to learn. That's basically what you got, right? A ton of
Yeah.
technologies that you need to learn. So it's okay that you don't know them, but you need to learn them now. You need to get at it. In the first week or the first 2 weeks, did you actually manage to do any work on those 2 weeks, or is was just learning and meeting people and setting up emails and meetings?
My manager made the onboarding so that at the end of each block or course, I had to do some small examples or a small work, because like at the Python module, then I had to make some small scripts and he would like grade them.
Okay.
So most of the time was learning, but I had to do some work because I needed to know how to apply the knowledge that I had gained.
Of course. And yeah, that's what we usually do. That's the first week is not much. Setting up emails, getting permissions, getting accesses, meeting people, taking a ton of notes. And the second week, by the second or by the third week, you are starting contributing, fixing a typo, moving a button 2 pixels to the right, or adding an extra label, things like that, right? And so when you start actually getting traction, by what week, what month you start actually working more than learning?
I think by the third week, my manager was already talking to me about the project that I was going to do, which was my first task.
Okay.
And he was telling me that they were making like a document that will tell me everything about the input, the outputs, the process that the script had to do. And then like at the fourth week, I finished my onboarding and I started working on the first task.
After 1 month, you started working on your first real task.
Yes.
And it's important, and I always ask this thing because we are anxious about the interview. We are anxious and nervous of, what if I don't do it? What if I don't pass the interview? And then when we pass the interview, we change that towards, what if I don't make it on the first day? What if I'm not good enough? What if I will not be able to perform as they want me? Usually there are no expectations during the first weeks. Doesn't matter the company. At least the 2 weeks, the 2 or 3 weeks, you are expecting to learn about the team, to learn about the project, to learn about the process and the technologies that it requires. And then they start gaining traction, simpler task by simpler task along the time. So that's the imposter syndrome, what is telling you, you may not, or I may not be able to do it. I may not be able to pass the interview. Or should I spend the time doing it if I know that I will fail? Or I don't know anything about it, about coding. What will happen on the first day of job? And that will always be there. That's a little demon that is talking on your ear. It's called the imposter syndrome. We all have it. We, especially IT and software developers, we all suffer with it, from it, and with it too. The key is to know that it's there, to know that when you are going through the interviews and preparing for the first day of job, then it will be there. There will be that little thing in the back of your head saying that you may not be able to do it. So just recognize that it's there, try to ignore it, and try to focus on the positive side, on getting to work, getting to learn. If you fail the interview, you will learn a lot from the interview. So just take notes, the things that you need to improve for the next time. Devin, do you have a question?
Yes. Hi there. And excuse my camera not being on. I can't get it to show up. But I wanted to really touch on a couple of different topics. One thing that I would like to know is, at this point, what do you think that you could work on that would make you better at the job that you're currently, expected to achieve?
I think learning more about the technologies that I had to use at work and being more getting better at my problem solving skills, because most of the time DevOps, you have to troubleshoot a lot of things, and maybe knowing more about automation, because most of the process have to be automated after some time.
Awesome. At this time, have you already received like any type of review or a reflection from any like supervisor?
I have like every 2 weeks, I have a one-on-one with my manager, and they usually talk about my performance and about what do I want to do in the company, about what areas do I want to move in, what type of tasks do I like, do I enjoy, what type of training do I need or want to do.
Perfect. And this position, I know that you left your prior position and jumped into this new opportunity, which seems like it's a much bigger company in form of operation. Do you feel that this opportunity is going to give you the space that you need to grow, or do you feel as if this is just another stepping stone? Do you have like immediate or short-term goals that are going to take you outside of this company, or allow you to advance in tech?
I think Trimble is a very good company that really sets, they at maybe like at the 6th or 7th week, they showed me like the roadmap of how people can grow there, and that Trimble had like the compromise of their employees to advance in their career like every 1 or 3 years. And if they don't, they will be asking you like, what do you need to grow, to learn? Why are you not getting better?
Got it. No, that's definitely awesome to hear. It sounds like they're definitely trying to keep you guys. They know that, technology is, always growing, and, there's always, so many other, competitors. So it's at least good that they seem to value you. I think that that's extremely important. My last question is, if you can give any of the active students any final words on what they can do to increase their level of competency and experience, based off of anything that you can share with them.
Well, for me, I think the advice I could give all of the students, it's to be, well, in Spanish could be sean prácticos. In English, it could be practical. Don't try to reinvent the wheel with every problem. Sometimes there are solutions that are proven, and you don't have to think a lot about them. And try to make a lot of work. As they say, practice makes perfect. So practice a lot.
You guys heard it here first. Thank you.
Thank you, Devin. Thank you very much, Julian. With those amazing advices, I think we can close. The time is up. So I just want to thank you. Thank you for your time again. Thank you for being here, sharing your experience, sharing your insights with the students. This is your house. This is your home. You graduated from here. And anytime that you want to show and step by and have another conversation, please don't hesitate. Doors are always open here at the SDKU for you. Devin, any last words? I see your hand is up, raised.
Oh, I think that that was a high five.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
part of my congratulations. Thank you
Okay.
so much for your time.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Julian. Thank you, everyone, for attending. It was great. It was great to have you here, Julian. Thank you for
Thank you.
everything.
Thanks to you too.
Julian.
Thank you.
Thank-
San Diego Global Knowledge University, Education Beyond Boundaries.